the key elements is the actual team. So who do you have in the team, and why are they the right people to build this product?
We have with us our expert today, Samar Malik, who's VC Partnerships Director at Grove SAP. She's also a mentor at Techstars. So during this process, she's helped many different startups with their pitch decks and to get them pitch ready. I'm Amar, and this is the Bay HQ, and this podcast is powered by HPC Innovation Banking. Samar, great to have you on today, and really incredible the different work you're doing with so many different startups. And one of the things you focus on a lot is helping people get pitch deck ready, right? So when they're about to do their pitch, how to make sure they're telling their story effectively in order to help them get investment. Could you just give us a high-level overview of what's the main things they need to be thinking about?
Yeah, cool. Thanks for that question, Amar. So I have been working with quite a few seed accelerators and seed startups as well in my previous role. So I would say there's the top of mind kind of main slides that you need to have are addressing your problem, the why, why is this such a big problem? Looking into your market, like how large is that market actually? Will that problem address enough people that you will have a relevant enough product that can actually generate enough revenue, I would say. So these are quite a few of the simple points that a lot of investors look at, as well as I would say, you've got your traction at the same time. So how much traction have you had? How many customers have you had? And, ever since from the moment of inception, have you been testing this out with customers? Have you been iterating? And how has that been forming and changing? And then I would say one of the key elements is the actual team. So who do you have in the team, and why are they the right people to build this product and build this out and push this out and scale it? So these are I would say a couple of the top elements. Then you've got your roadmap and your financials and so on. But if you don't have the key core of where your what is your product? What is going to be that problem that is so important that only you can solve and only your particular team can actually solve? Then those are these are the first elements that you have to address, I would say.
So if we dive into those bits in more detail, so let's first look at the problem, right? So you said, I guess, two elements there. One is what is the problem, but it's also how to make it showcase why it's so important, right? And I think I've seen lots of decks which just don't do this very well. What advice do you have to people to really showcase this is a problem that needs to be solved that investors should care about?
Yeah, I mean, you need to do your research for that. You can just sit next to your best friend or, anyone next to your colleague and be like, oh, I think this is such a big problem. And I experience this on a daily basis. And you are that market size at that point. And you and your friend are that market size. So I would say researching and validating that particular problem is key for a startup. And then also testing your assumptions. So look at all of the assumptions and write all of them down. Look at them and test every single one of them. Okay, this is the assumption that I'm making, that everyone in the world has this problem, or everyone in the UK has this problem that I'm facing or I'm trying to build out. So first, test your assumptions. So if it's a yes, then keep on going and testing further and further and going deeper down into it. I would say you have to look at, what the people your customers would be thinking, feeling, what are they really experiencing this problem? Uber, there were, the problem was that you have to go and call a taxi. And then if you wait for the taxi to come, you don't know when it's going to come. You're not in communication with that person. And then this app came and it solved those problems of you having to have no visibility on that particular taxi that you were trying to get, and you can get one within minutes. So are you solving a big enough problem? The other element I would say is you will, if you're solving an important and relevant enough problem, then you will definitely have competitors. So I've heard plenty of people saying, we are new, we are doing something so innovative and so future driven, and nobody else is doing this. The question is, the question you have to ask is, okay, if you have no competitors in the space, why is no one doing this? Like, why is no one addressing this problem? Is it even big enough? Is it relevant? Is this the right time to be looking at this problem? So I think it's always good to have competitors, because that shows that there's kind of healthy competition. This is a bit more of a developed market. This is probably maybe a growing market. You might not have huge amount of competitors, but that's something, some of the elements that you have to evaluate, which will help you in further refining your idea and further refining your pitch as well. So your research, you testing your assumptions, you looking at your competitors, and if there's no competitors, look for why there aren't as many competitors. Obviously, there are certain markets that are so fragmented as well. Like, I would say the beauty market, there are so many players in the market. So you have to also test, like, right now, where will I stand in against these other competitors in the market? And there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, I would say. So those are the kind of, like, if you dive deeper into it, those are the key points I would make.
So looking at that, there's a couple of different points to come out of that, I think. One's about the team, which we'll come into afterwards. But first of all, you mentioned about the market sizing, right? And about, is this a problem that's big enough to attract investors or not? And I think one of the classic things I see a lot of the time, right, is you get, obviously, my LinkedIn DM box is full of this, right? Some people are like, we're disrupting the global healthcare market, which is worth $500 trillion. And it's like, well, actually, you're addressing a tiny, tiny bit of that, but they're using these big headline numbers to try and draw attention, which it just kind of becomes a turn off for someone like me, right? How do you advise people to try and work out, like, what is the correct market size to be using? Like, because there's obviously, for some people listening will understand what, like, SAM and SOM and TAM is, but others won't really understand the difference. So if you could run through that, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. And that's a great question, because I have dealt with startups and founders looking at exactly this particular problem. Like, we have a market size of, 5 trillion. And so, our like serviceable, addressable market will be 300 billion. And then we're going to target like 1 billion of it. But you have no customer attraction, you have no validation of your product. Are you generating, as much revenue in the millions, because you need to be there to even be thinking about the billions. So I would say, like, whenever you do come across, yes, I would say, like, it would be the complete, I would rearrange it to the complete total addressable market could be in the trillions. Yes. But that is not even like, and then I would add like another kind of like, like a segment underneath, which would be the total addressable market for you. And then the serviceable, addressable market. And then there's the share of the market, or the serviceable or obtainable market. You need to look at, like, really, like, realistically, just, don't think about anything except for reality. Don't think about, like, how, like, your investors will see, because the investors will see right through you. They see, like, hundreds and thousands of pitch decks every week, every month. They will see right through the numbers that you're pitching, and especially if you have industry focused investors, your numbers should match up with everyone else who's pitching to them at the same time. So I would say, first, your research is really, really key. You can either start like top down or bottom up, I would say, from like first looking at your product, and then testing it out, once you have customer traction, you see like how your market is growing, and then who are the potential customers in that space. Then you start building out, okay, right, well, these are the customers that we have right now, and most probably we'll be able to get it from XYZ industries, or spaces, or these are going to be the particular personas that we're going to have, and these are the people we can and we are able to target. So then that's your kind of share of the market. Then your serviceable, obtainable market is like, the larger industries, what other industries you could go into potentially. And that's your, like the obtainable market. And why it's called the obtainable market is because, you're trying to get like a share of that market from the other competitors. So you need to include your competitor research. Like, this is not just a slide by itself with like like 5, 6 numbers on it. It's a very key outcome of all of the research you've done, and it might just keep on iterating. The TAM is never going to be accurate, I would say. So that TAM, you can always make it smaller. It can always be smaller to um, that smaller total addressable market for you. So not that complete total one, right? So when you maybe become like into $100 million business, or go further than that, perhaps that's where you can start thinking, or like you're at a point where you're scaling, you can start thinking about like how to increase that market share. And you will probably be at a point where you're adding more products, more services, expanding into new geographies, and so on, becoming a scale up. So I would say like this is not, the TAM is not the problem, or the point that you should focus on. It's start with bottom up, and you'll be able to get more accurate results from that.
You mentioned as well about competition, right? And this is one of the things I've learned very rapidly over the last year. From at the beginning, you're so excited about everybody you see. It's like, oh wow, this is such a new idea. And then you realize you see 10 other decks with the exact same idea and you feel a bit silly, right? And like I said, ideas in some ways are cheap, right? Unless it's say biotech or something like that with some kind of science behind what they're doing. A lot of the time, the ideas is something that other people can execute too. And this is where you, like as you mentioned, the team side is so important. So how do you get across that you're the right team to be building this when maybe that investor has seen a similar idea from multiple different people?
Yeah, great question. I mean, you have to kind of you have to really highlight the strengths of your team. Unfortunately, like the way this whole like the whole investor ecosystem, like the startup ecosystem works, is that it really depends on, perhaps those people who have previously built a startup might be favored more than those who haven't. It's more on like how much experience you have as a founder. Then you've got like industry expertise. So like if you are someone who's coming from fashion, but you try and build out like a health tech company, you will not be favored over someone who comes from like more of a bio background. So those are other elements. And then I would say like your developer, your CTO is so important. So very, very crucial in like the things that you've built. And I think like the way that you can stand out from other people who have a similar idea is actually by showing traction and by showing results, and showing like, you've generated revenue, you have how many customers you've brought in, how you're growing, how you're expanding, what's your roadmap. And that's where I feel like you can stand out, because it's, and there's just like an instinct as well, I would say, of that investors are looking for, their gut instinct that helps them select the right team, because essentially it will be the team that builds out the product and the startup and the company. There is no startup without that team, and the team is probably beginning with is only 2 people. So you guys have to have like the most amazing chemistry, the most amazing alignment on like your partnership and how you're going to work together, how you're going to complement each other. There might be someone who's more like sales focused and like more people focused, whereas like you're basically every single role in a whole startup. Your HR, your tech, your compliance and security, and product, everything, marketing. So you need to divide those particular roles between both of you. But again, like key is like experience, like that kind of founder mentality, showing that you've gone through like some level of resilience through your life, taking risks, and been able to like come up on top, I think can help as well. But again, like if you can show that you have evidence and you have results, then really, like I think there must be something fully inherently wrong with like your partnership as 2 different people for an investor to not invest in you. So I'm sure like and there's always feedback. I mean, like always getting feedback from investors is really important, or from like other people. But then again, like it's tricky, because you need to see exactly which feedback is relevant for you, and which people are giving you the feedback, and how like lightly how you put that on the scales as well.
We hope you're enjoying the episode so far. We just want to give a quick shout out to our headline partners, HPC Innovation Banking. One of the biggest challenges for so many startups is finding the right bank to support them. Because you might start off and try to use a traditional bank, but they don't understand what you're doing. You're just talking to an AI assistant, or you're talking to somebody who doesn't really understand what it is you've been trying to do. HPC have got the team that are built out over years to make sure they understand what you're doing, they've got the deep sector expertise, and they can help connect you with the right people to make your dreams come true. So if you want to learn more, check out hpcinnovationbanking.com. So you brought up traction just now as well. And I think this is sometimes a sticking point for early stage founders where some of them think like, oh, I can just do it without having done anything. Yeah, that's what everybody else raises. And they see obviously the outlier stories sometimes in the news and say, like, people who did it on the back of a napkin. But obviously that's not the general situation. And how do you think about that in terms of like how much traction, or when's the right time for people to start looking at doing that, like fundraising? Because should they try to get, what kind of level of traction should they get?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends for like what type of, how much you're trying to raise at the same time. So I think like you need like your solid first 10 customers, I would say, like just to begin with. And then you need to show that you're showing like at least like you're generating a bit of revenue, at least in regards to like how, you've built up your startup, and what is kind of the return on investment from your own side. I do believe that if you can stay bootstrapped as long as possible, it's kind of like an ideal situation because you have more control of like a lot of the elements of your own company. But I think like it really depends. You will know if you're having enough traction, definitely as a company, and depending on which industry you're in, because you need to have like key milestones that you're hitting within your startup, within your kind of goals of like the next 6 months or the next 3 months. And if you are growing exponentially, like are you growing 10x, then are you going like 10x that, and within a year have you grown 100x? You have to look at those things, and that's what the investors will also look at, is like how quickly are you getting traction, depending on like how large your company is and how large your startup is growing at the same time. And so like traction is difficult, I would say, for everyone to kind of measure. But I would say like if you can show that 10x, like, or if you can show like 100 times growth, that is awesome. And if you can stay bootstrapped, then stay bootstrapped as much as possible. At some point you do need to go and get investment from the investors, from VCs, or angel investors, just because their expertise is really important and key there as well, and they can help you with like pushing you to scale at the same time. So yeah, I would say those are a few of the elements.
So we've covered a few different of the major areas of a lot of pitch decks and a lot of pitches at the moment. Is there anything that we haven't covered yet that you think is really important and you want to make sure that you get it across to the audience?
Okay, so I think that the value proposition is an element that I think comes together in all of the pitch deck, and it is really, really important because you're looking at what is your unique selling point. So what makes you unique, and where are you fitting that gap in the market that the other competitors in that market are not filling? So it's like that 1% or 2% or like 3% edge that you have over other competitors, that makes you as a company, as a startup, whole, your product relevant, your problem big enough, and your market large enough for you to target, I would say, at the same time. So like your value proposition, your ethos, your passion for your startup, you should not let go of that passion. However, take feedback and iterate and change when you are given feedback from someone who is relevant and who has been working in this space for a very long time. And if you're not fully feeling comfortable. So, I mean, I started my own company quite a few years ago. It was called Table Tassels. It was a luxury design company focused on bespoke table and chair linen. I kind of like looked at an idea that was happening in the US, and I saw that no one else in the UK was providing any kind of service like this, like absolutely no one that I could find, maybe like one or two other people. And so I thought, okay, well, I think everyone needs chair covers in the UK. So what I did was I invested like my own money, took some money from my parents, and invested and put it into like creating all of these beautiful designs for chair covers. Uh, like put a lot of money in, and then found out that no one was interested. So I made like probably around 300 different types of chair covers, and then I made like 5 different table covers. And what people were interested in were my table covers. And so, I went and I assumed that if this is if this is working in the US, it's obviously going to work in the UK, and I can just replicate this without even having to, do any proper market research, because I think I've done enough. And what I should have done was created like 5 different varieties of both, then gone out, tested it, checked what the reaction from the market was, come back, iterated, and then, like fully like developed my idea. And so most of my revenue and most of my profits came from, like, actually 100% of profits came from table covers and like being at those events and bespoke designing from that side. So, I definitely learned my lesson from that. That you should not assume, and your assumptions are so important, because don't ask your mom, like, if your idea is great, she's gonna always tell you that it's great. So like, move out of your friends and family circle, move out to people that you don't know and who don't know you. Ask them, and just like contact them on LinkedIn, or like reach out randomly, and just, I've had people reach out to me and ask me for feedback on their pitch and their product, and I have, just because it helps them with their development. And that's what you need to focus on, is like, if you want to win and you want to grow and you want to scale, then you have to change a lot of the ways that you work. And some may work and some may not work, and some things that you do will be fine and others won't. And you have to deal with like people kind of calling your baby ugly, that kind of situation. So I would say, like, these are some of the important things that you need to ensure when you're putting your heart and soul into your pitch. Remember that, like, always stay humble.
Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing all of your advice. We're going to have to move on to quick fire questions now. First one, with 3 pitchations, you think you're doing incredible work, and you'd love to shout out.
I would say Walid Al-Sakaf. So he is the co-founder of Rebalance Earth, a startup in the UK focused on sustainability and putting a lot of money into local projects focused on sustainability. Initially, it was an idea driven towards like carbon offsetting through the African forests of Gabon. So he's doing fantastic work. He's so passionate. You should definitely have him on the show. The second person I would say is Taz Latif. So she has been a huge kind of global D&I expert, a good friend of mine, and she has been doing such fantastic work in our community and in pushing out work for charity as well. She was like the global head of D&I at Saatchi and Saatchi. And she really speaks out about humanitarian causes, such as everything that's happening in Palestine as well. So like a big shout out to her. And the last one is Reem Wyndham. So she is the partner at Pact VC, a VC focused on pushing money into impactful causes and important startups as well.
So thanks for shouting these people out. If people want to get in touch with you or learn more about you, where should they go to?
LinkedIn. They can get in touch with me on LinkedIn.
And is there anything that anybody could help you with that's listening today?
Yeah, I'd love to connect with anyone I could support with, helping with their ideas, maybe like pushing, further developing their pitches, as well as, any scale-ups and founders that are looking to meet with new investors. And I love meeting investors as well. So anyone in the startup ecosystem, happy to meet.
So thank you so much for coming on today. Any final words?
No, thank you so much. Shout out to you, Amar, as well. You're my fourth shout out, I would say, for bringing me on this show and all the amazing work that you're doing in the ecosystem. So hats off to you.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.